I thought my sister Jessica was my best friend until she destroyed my life in the most unthinkable way. What she did to me at my lowest moment changed everything between us forever. But sometimes karma has a twisted sense of humor, and when the perfect opportunity for payback landed right in my lap, I took it. By the time I was done, she was begging me to stop, but it was already too late. My name is Sandra Brown, and this is how I got the sweetest revenge of my life. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. Growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, Jessica and I were inseparable. She was 2 years older, and I absolutely worshipped her. Our parents, Michael and Patricia Brown, always said we were like two peas in a pod. Jessica had this magnetic personality that drew everyone to her. She was the homecoming queen, captain of the debate team, and seemed to excel at everything without even trying. I was the quieter one, more focused on my studies and my small circle of close friends. After high school, we both ended up at Arizona State University. Jessica majored in communications while I pursued accounting. Despite our different paths, we remained incredibly close. We'd have sister dinners every Tuesday, shop together on weekends, and she was always the first person I'd call when something exciting or terrible happened in my life. It was during my junior year that I met Tyler Martinez. He was in my advanced taxation class. This incredibly smart, funny guy with the most beautiful dark eyes I'd ever seen. Tyler was different from the typical college guys I'd dated. He was serious about his future, worked part-time at a local CPA firm, and had this quiet confidence that I found irresistible. We started studying together, which turned into coffee dates, which eventually blossomed into the most genuine relationship I'd ever experienced. Tyler treated me like I was the most important person in his world. He'd surprise me with my favorite lavender latte from the campus coffee shop, leave little encouraging notes in my textbooks before big exams, and actually listened when I talked about my dreams of starting my own accounting practice someday. After 6 months of dating, I knew I was completely in love with him. Of course, I couldn't wait to introduce him to Jessica. She was my sister, my best friend, and I wanted her approval more than anything. The night I brought Tyler to our usual Tuesday dinner spot, Romano's Italian Bistro downtown, I was practically glowing with excitement. Jessica was already seated when we arrived, looking stunning as always in a black dress that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. I made the introductions, and I noticed Tyler seemed a bit nervous, which I thought was adorable. Throughout dinner, Jessica was her usual charming self, asking Tyler about his goals, his family, his interests. She had this way of making people feel like they were the only person in the room when she talked to them. "So Tyler," she said, leaning forward with that signature smile of hers, "Sandra tells me you're planning to work in corporate tax. That's such a smart field to get into right now." Tyler's face lit up. "Exactly. Most people think accounting is boring, but tax law is constantly evolving. There's always something new to learn, new strategies to develop." I watched proudly as they discussed his career ambitions. Jessica seemed genuinely interested, asking thoughtful questions about his internship and his plans after graduation. By the end of the evening, I felt like the luckiest girl alive. My boyfriend and my sister clearly liked each other, which meant everything to me. Over the next few months, Tyler became a regular part of our family dynamics. He'd join us for Sunday dinners at our parents' house, come to Jessica's work events when she needed a +1, and even helped her move into her new apartment near downtown Phoenix. I thought it was wonderful how well they got along. But there were small things I started noticing that made me slightly uncomfortable. Jessica would text Tyler directly sometimes instead of going through me. Nothing inappropriate, just things like asking if he could recommend a good restaurant for a client dinner, or whether he thought she should lease or buy her new car. When I mentioned it to Tyler, he brushed it off. "She's just being friendly, Sandra. Besides, you're always telling me how close you two are. Isn't it good that she feels comfortable asking for my advice?" He was right, of course. I was being silly and insecure. Jessica had always been more outgoing and social than me. It made sense that she'd develop a friendly relationship with my boyfriend. The real problem started during my senior year. I was drowning in coursework, preparing for the CPA exam, and dealing with the stress of job interviews. My anxiety was at an all-time high, and I wasn't exactly the most fun person to be around. Tyler was incredibly patient with me, but I could tell the constant stress was taking a toll on our relationship. Then came the week that changed everything. I had 3 major exams, a group project presentation, and 2 job interviews all scheduled within 5 days. I was barely sleeping, living on energy drinks and stress. And I'm ashamed to admit I was pretty much ignoring everyone in my life, including Tyler. On Thursday night, I was in the library until 2 a.m. cramming for my advanced auditing exam. When I finally got back to my apartment, exhausted and emotionally drained, I found 17 missed calls from Tyler and a bunch of texts that made my stomach drop. "Sandra, we need to talk. This isn't working anymore. I can't keep doing this." I called him back immediately, my hand shaking as I dialed. When he answered, his voice was cold and distant in a way I'd never heard before. "Tyler, what's wrong? I saw your messages and I'm so sorry I missed your calls." "This week has been absolutely insane with Sandra." "Stop," he interrupted. "I can't do this anymore. You're never available. We never spend time together. And when we do, you're completely distracted. I feel like I'm dating a ghost." My heart was pounding. "Tyler, please, just give me until this weekend. After my last exam on Friday, things will go back to normal. I know I've been horrible lately, but there's something else," he said, and the way he said it made my blood run cold. "I've been talking to Jessica a lot lately. About us, about everything. And Sandra, she's been there for me in ways that you haven't been." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What do you mean she's been there for you?" There was a long pause. "We've become really close. Closer than we probably should have. I'm sorry, Sandra, but I think I have feelings for her." I couldn't breathe. "Tyler, no. Please don't do this. I love you. I know I've been stressed and distracted, but we can work through this. Please don't throw away everything we have because of a few bad weeks." "It's not just a few bad weeks, Sandra. It's been months of this. And Jessica, she gets me in ways that you don't. We have this connection that I can't ignore anymore." The call ended with Tyler telling me he needed space to figure things out. I spent the entire night crying, calling Jessica to tell her what happened, expecting my sister to comfort me and help me figure out how to save my relationship. But when Jessica answered her phone, she sounded strange, distant. "Oh, Sandra," she said, and there was something in her voice that I couldn't quite identify. "Tyler told me about your conversation." "Jessica, I don't know what to do. I love him so much, and I think he's making a huge mistake. This is just stress from school, but once I graduate, everything will be different. You know him, can you talk to him? Help him see that we belong together?" There was another long pause before Jessica spoke again. "Sandra, there's something I need to tell you. Tyler and we've been seeing each other." The phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. When I picked it up, Jessica was still talking, her voice sounding far away and distorted. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way. We never meant for it to go this far, but we have real feelings for each other." "I'm so sorry, Sandra. I never wanted to hurt you." I hung up on her and spent the next hour vomiting from the shock. My sister, my best friend, the person I trusted most in the world, had been secretly dating my boyfriend. While I was drowning in schoolwork and stress, while I was pushing Tyler away without meaning to, Jessica had swooped in and stolen him from me. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The worst part was how calculated it all seemed when I looked back. All those times she'd texted him directly. All those conversations about restaurants and cars and life advice. She'd been building a relationship with him right under my nose. While I was struggling and vulnerable, she'd presented herself as the better option. The more available option. The more desirable brown sister. The next morning, I somehow managed to drag myself to my advanced auditing exam. I sat there for 3 hours, staring at questions about internal controls and risk assessment, while my entire world crumbled around me. I'm pretty sure I failed that exam, but honestly, it was the least of my concerns. After the exam, I drove straight to Jessica's new apartment. I had to hear this from her face to face, and had to understand how my own sister could do something so devastating to me. When she opened the door, she looked guilty but also defiant, like she'd been preparing for this confrontation. "Sandra, please come in. We need to talk about this properly." Her apartment was gorgeous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Phoenix. Modern furniture that probably cost more than I made in 6 months at my part-time job. Jessica had always landed on her feet, always seemed to get exactly what she wanted out of life. "How long?" I asked without sitting down. She knew exactly what I meant. 2 months. 2 months. I repeated the words, trying to process them. "So while I was killing myself with schoolwork, while I was planning a future with Tyler, you were secretly dating him for 2 months." "It wasn't like that, Sandra. It started as just friendship. I was trying to help you two work through your problems. Tyler was frustrated and lonely, and you were always too busy to see what was happening. So this is my fault?" My voice was getting louder. "I was working my ass off to graduate and build a career, and somehow that justifies you stealing my boyfriend?" Jessica's expression hardened. "Nobody stole anybody, Sandra. Tyler made his own choice. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to your relationship instead of burying yourself in textbooks, this wouldn't have happened." That's when I realized something that made my stomach turn. Jessica wasn't sorry. Not really. She was defensive, almost proud of what she'd done. "You planned this," I said slowly. "You saw that Tyler and I were going through a rough patch, and you decided to move in on him. That's ridiculous."
"I would never. You absolutely would."
"You've always had to have everything I had, but better. In high school, if I liked a guy, you'd suddenly find him interesting. If I joined a club, you'd join too and somehow become the president. I thought we'd grown out of that, but you haven't changed at all." Jessica stood up, her face flushed. "That's not true, and you know it. Tyler and I have a genuine connection. We understand each other in ways that—" "Stop," I cut her off. "Just stop. I don't want to hear about your connection with my boyfriend." "Ex-boyfriend," she corrected coldly. "He's not yours anymore, Sandra." I stared at her, this person who looked like my sister but was acting like a complete stranger. "You're right. He's not mine anymore, but neither are you." I left her apartment that day and didn't speak to Jessica for the next 6 months. I blocked her number, unfriended her on all social media, and avoided any family gatherings where she might be present. Our parents were devastated by the rift between us, constantly trying to get us to reconcile. But I wasn't ready to forgive what she'd done. Tyler tried calling me a few times in those first weeks, but I never answered. I heard through mutual friends that he and Jessica were officially dating now, going to fancy restaurants and weekend getaways in Sedona. It felt surreal, watching my former life play out with my sister as the leading lady. I threw myself into finishing school and job hunting. Somehow, despite everything that had happened, I managed to graduate summa cum laude and landed a position at Henderson & Associates, one of Phoenix's most prestigious accounting firms. The work was challenging and demanding, but it was exactly the distraction I needed. My new life was taking shape. I found a beautiful apartment in Scottsdale, started making friends with my colleagues, and slowly began dating again. Nothing serious, just casual dinners and movie dates that helped me remember I was capable of having fun without Tyler or Jessica in my life. About 8 months after the breakup, I was at a networking event for young professionals when I met someone who would change everything. His name was Marcus Wellington, and he was absolutely magnetic. Tall, with perfectly styled blonde hair and the kind of confident smile that made every woman in the room notice him. Marcus was a successful real estate developer who'd made his fortune flipping luxury properties in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley. At 32, he was everything Tyler wasn't: sophisticated, established, and completely focused on me from the moment we started talking. "Sandra Brown," he said, extending his hand after I'd introduced myself. "That's a strong name for someone in accounting. I bet you're excellent with numbers." "I like to think so," I replied, surprised by how easy it was to flirt with him. We spent the entire evening talking. Marcus told me about his latest project, converting a historic mansion in the Biltmore area into luxury condos. I told him about some of the more interesting tax strategies I'd been working on for high-net-worth clients. By the end of the night, he'd asked me to dinner. Our first real date was at Kai, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the Phoenix area. Marcus ordered wine that cost more than my monthly car payment and treated me like I was the most fascinating woman he'd ever met. He asked thoughtful questions about my career goals, my family, and my dreams for the future. When I mentioned that I eventually wanted to start my own practice, he didn't dismiss it or suggest it would be difficult as a woman in a male-dominated field. Instead, he started brainstorming ways he could help me build my client base through his business connections. "You know, Sandra," he said over dessert, "I've been looking for a sharp accountant to handle the books for my development company. Someone I can trust completely. Would you be interested in doing some consulting work?" Within 3 months, I was handling all of Marcus's accounting needs and making more money than I'd ever dreamed possible. More importantly, I was falling hard for this incredible man who saw my potential and wanted to help me achieve it. Marcus was the opposite of Tyler in every way that mattered. Where Tyler had been cautious about the future, Marcus was boldly ambitious. Where Tyler had been content with modest goals, Marcus thought big and encouraged me to do the same. And where Tyler had ultimately chosen someone else over me, Marcus made it clear every single day that I was his priority. Our relationship moved quickly, but it felt natural and right. Marcus introduced me to his circle of successful friends, took me on weekend trips to San Diego and Las Vegas, and treated me like his equal in every way. By our 6-month anniversary, I was practically living at his stunning house in Paradise Valley. It was around this time that I started hearing through the family grapevine that Jessica and Tyler's relationship wasn't going as smoothly as I'd imagined. According to my mom, who still talked to Jessica regularly despite my estrangement with her, Tyler was struggling to find a good job after graduation. He'd been turned down by several major firms and had settled for a position at a small local practice that paid barely above entry level. Jessica, meanwhile, had been talking constantly about wanting to get engaged. She was 26 now, and most of her friends were getting married and starting families. But Tyler kept putting her off, saying he wanted to be more financially stable before they took that step. I tried to tell myself I didn't care about their problems, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't give me a small sense of satisfaction. While Jessica was stuck waiting for Tyler to propose, I was building an amazing life with someone who actually appreciated what I had to offer. Then came the night that set my revenge plan in motion. Though I didn't realize it at the time, Marcus and I were having dinner at his house when he brought up something that made my heart skip a beat. "Sandra, there's something I want to talk to you about," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our future together." My pulse quickened. Was this it? Was Marcus about to propose? "I love you," he continued, "and I can see us building something incredible together. But before we take the next step, I think it's important that I meet your family properly. Your parents, your sister, the people who matter most to you." My face must have fallen, because Marcus immediately looked concerned. "Sandra, what's wrong? Did I say something?" "No, it's not you," I said quickly. "It's just, my sister and I aren't speaking right now. We had a falling out over a year ago, and things between us are complicated." Marcus squeezed my hand gently. "What happened?" For the first time since we'd been dating, I told him the whole story about Jessica and Tyler. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious as I explained how my sister had betrayed me. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Sandra," he finally said, "I'm so sorry that happened to you, but I think you should consider reaching out to Jessica." I started to protest, but he held up his hand. "Hear me out. Family is everything, and life is too short to hold grudges. Besides," he smiled that confident smile that had first caught my attention, "I have a feeling that once your sister sees me and sees how happy you are, she's going to realize she made a huge mistake." That's when the idea first started forming in my mind. Marcus was right. Jessica was going to realize she'd made a huge mistake. but maybe not in the way he was thinking. The plan started forming that very night as I lay awake next to Marcus, listening to him breathe peacefully while my mind raced with possibilities. Jessica had always been competitive with me, always needed to prove she was better, more desirable, more successful. What if I used that weakness against her? Over the next few days, I did some careful reconnaissance. I started following Jessica's social media accounts from a fake profile, and what I discovered was even better than I'd hoped. Her Instagram was filled with complaints disguised as inspirational posts about waiting for the right timing and believing in your partner's potential. Meanwhile, Tyler's LinkedIn showed he was still stuck at that small accounting firm, making probably a third of what I was earning with Marcus. More importantly, I noticed that Jessica had been posting photos from the same coffee shops and restaurants she'd always frequented. She was clearly still in Phoenix, still living her same routine, which meant she had no idea what my life had become over the past year. I spent 2 weeks crafting the perfect approach. It had to seem natural, coincidental, like I was the bigger person reaching out to heal our family rift. Marcus had unknowingly given me the perfect excuse. He wanted to meet my family, and what loving girlfriend would keep her amazing boyfriend from her sister indefinitely? On a Thursday afternoon, I drove to Copper Canyon Coffee, the little place near ASU where Jessica and I used to study together in college. I knew from her recent Instagram posts that she still came here regularly on Thursday afternoons. I ordered my lavender latte and positioned myself at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance, laptop open, looking every inch the successful businesswoman I'd become. At 2:47 p.m., Jessica walked through the door, and I have to admit, seeing her after more than a year hit me harder than I'd expected. She looked older, tired in a way that expensive concealers couldn't quite hide. Her hair was still perfect, her outfit still stylish, but there was something deflated about her energy. I waited until she'd ordered and was looking for a seat before I called out, "Jessica?" She turned, and the shock on her face was everything I'd hoped for. "Sandra? Oh my God, I can't believe it's you." I stood up and gave her a careful hug, the kind you give to distant relatives at family reunions. "It's so good to see you. Do you want to sit?" "I was just finishing up some client work, but I have a few minutes." Jessica slid into the chair across from me, her eyes taking in my appearance. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a sleek black blazer from Nordstrom, expensive jewelry that Marcus had given me, and the kind of polished confidence that comes from knowing you're winning at life. "You look amazing," Jessica said, and I could hear the surprise in her voice. "Really successful and put together? Thank you. I feel like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be, you know?" I closed my laptop deliberately. "How are you? How's Tyler?" A shadow crossed her face. "He's good. Working hard, still at Peterson and Associates." "We're doing well," I nodded sympathetically. "That's wonderful. I'm so glad you two found happiness together." Jessica blinked, clearly not expecting forgiveness from me. "Sandra, We never got to really talk about everything that happened. I want you to know how sorry I am about the way things went down. I never meant for anyone to get hurt." "Water under the bridge," I said with a smile. "Honestly, Jessica, I think everything happened the way it was supposed to. If Tyler and I had stayed together, I never would have met Marcus." "Marcus?" "My boyfriend. Actually, we've been talking about taking the next step, and he's been asking to meet my family. I realize how silly this whole situation has been, keeping my sister and my boyfriend apart because of ancient history." Jessica leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "Tell me about him." I pulled out my phone and showed her a recent photo of Marcus and me at a charity gala in Scottsdale. In the picture, Marcus looked devastating in his tuxedo, his arm around my waist, both of us radiating success and happiness. "He's in real estate development," I said casually. "He builds luxury properties in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley. We actually just got back from a weekend in Napa Valley." I watched Jessica's eyes widen as she took in the details. Marcus's obvious wealth, the expensive setting of the photo, the way he was looking at me like I was the most precious thing in his world. "He's very handsome," she said carefully. "He's incredible, brilliant, successful, and he treats me like a queen." I've never been with someone who was so sure about what he wanted. I paused for effect. Actually, I think he's going to propose soon. He's been dropping hints about ring shopping and meeting the family. The look that flashed across Jessica's face was exactly what I'd been hoping for. A mixture of surprise, envy, and something that looked suspiciously like regret. That's amazing, Sandra. I'm so happy for you. But her smile was strained, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. Here was her little sister, the one she'd always overshadowed, living a life that was clearly more glamorous and successful than her own. You know what? I said, as if the idea had just occurred to me. We should all get together sometime. A double date. I think you and Tyler would really like Marcus, and I'd love to get to know Tyler better now that we're all adults. Jessica hesitated. I'm not sure Tyler would be comfortable with that. Oh, come on, I said with a laugh. It's been over a year. Surely we can all be mature about this. Besides, Marcus specifically said he wants to meet the sister I've told him so much about. I could see her wavering, caught between curiosity about Marcus and loyalty to Tyler. Let me think about it, she said finally. Of course, no pressure. But Jessica, I really do want us to be sisters again. Life's too short to stay angry over things that happened when we were practically kids. We exchanged numbers. She still had mine saved, but I'd blocked hers months ago and made plans to talk soon. As I walked back to my car, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. That night, I told Marcus about reconnecting with Jessica, carefully editing the story to make myself look mature and forgiving. I'm so proud of you, he said, pulling me close. It takes real strength to be the bigger person. I can't wait to meet her. Actually, I said, snuggling closer, I was thinking we could invite them to dinner. Maybe at Dominic's Steakhouse? Somewhere nice but not too intimidating. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Dominic's? That's pretty fancy for a first meeting. I want Jessica to see how well you take care of me, I said honestly. She's always been the successful sister, the one who seemed to have everything figured out. I guess I want her to see that I've built something pretty amazing too. He kissed the top of my head. Sandra, you don't have anything to prove to anyone. But if it's important to you, then it's important to me. Jessica called me 3 days later. In the background, I could hear Tyler's voice, though I couldn't make out what he was saying. Sandra, she said, Tyler and I talked, and we'd love to have dinner with you and Marcus. When were you thinking? How about next Friday? 7 o'clock at Dominic's Steakhouse in Scottsdale? There was a pause. Dominic's is pretty expensive. Don't worry about it. Marcus and I will take care of everything. It's our treat. Another pause, longer this time. Okay, that sounds lovely. After she hung up, I sat in my office at Marcus's development company, looking out at the Phoenix skyline, and allowed myself a moment of pure anticipation. Jessica had no idea what she was walking into. I spent the next week preparing for that dinner like it was the most important business meeting of my life. I bought a new dress, a stunning emerald green number that made my skin glow, and showed off the figure I'd been maintaining with twice-weekly sessions with Marcus's personal trainer. I made sure my hair and nails were perfect, that my jewelry was subtle but expensive, that every detail conveyed success and happiness. Marcus, bless him, had no idea he was being used as a weapon in a sibling war. He just saw a girlfriend who wanted to make a good impression on her estranged sister. You seem nervous, he said as we drove to the restaurant that Friday evening. I guess I am, a little, I admitted. This is the first time Jessica and I will be in the same room since everything happened. I want it to go well. It will, Marcus said confidently. How could it not? You're amazing, I'm charming, and by the end of the night, your sister is going to wonder why she ever let you slip away. If only he knew how right he was going to be. Dominic's Steakhouse was exactly what I'd hoped for. Dimly lit, sophisticated, with the kind of atmosphere that screamed money and success. Marcus and I arrived first, and I made sure we were seated at one of the prime tables near the window with a view of the Scottsdale cityscape. The maitre d' knew Marcus by name, which added another perfect touch to the evening's orchestration. I was sipping a glass of Dom Perignon when Jessica and Tyler walked through the entrance, and the moment was everything I'd fantasized about for weeks. Jessica looked beautiful, as always, but there was something forced about her smile, and her dress, while stylish, was clearly from a department store rather than a boutique. Tyler looked uncomfortable in a suit that had probably seen better days, his hair slightly too long and his shoes scuffed. But it was their expressions when they spotted our table that made my heart race with vindication. Jessica's eyes widened as she took in Marcus, all 6 feet 2 inches of him in his perfectly tailored navy suit, his confident posture, the way he stood to greet them with genuine warmth. Tyler's face went through a series of micro-expressions that I caught because I'd been studying him so carefully. Surprise, discomfort, and something that might have been regret. Jessica. Tyler! I stood up, my smile radiant and genuine. I'm so excited you're here. Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand to Tyler first. You must be Tyler. Sandra's told me so much about you. I'm Marcus Wellington. I watched Tyler's handshake, saw how he tried to match Marcus's firm grip, but came up slightly short. Nice to meet you, Marcus. Thanks for dinner. Then Marcus turned to Jessica, and I held my breath. This was the moment I'd been orchestrating. When my sister would come face to face with everything she'd cost herself by choosing Tyler over family loyalty. And you must be the famous Jessica, Marcus said, taking her hand and giving it a gentle kiss on the knuckles, a gesture that was charming without being inappropriate, but intimate enough to make Tyler shift uncomfortably. Sandra talks about you constantly. I feel like I already know you. Jessica's cheeks flushed pink. That's very sweet. Sandra, you didn't tell me how charming your boyfriend was. I tried to warn you, I said with a laugh, linking my arm through Marcus's. He's impossible to resist. We settled into our seats, Marcus gallantly pulling out my chair, and I could see Jessica noticing every detail. The way the sommelier approached our table personally to recommend wine pairings, how Marcus casually mentioned that his company was developing a new resort property in Sedona. The effortless way he commanded respect from the staff while remaining completely gracious and down to earth. So, Tyler, Marcus said after we'd ordered our appetizers, Sandra mentioned you're in accounting too. That's fantastic. What kind of work do you focus on? Tyler straightened up, clearly trying to project confidence. I'm at Peterson & Associates. We handle small to mid-sized businesses, some individual tax work. It's good, steady work. That's wonderful, Marcus replied. There's something to be said for building relationships with local businesses. Sandra's been helping me navigate some complex tax situations with my development projects. I don't know what I'd do without her expertise. He turned to smile at me, his hand finding mine on the table. She's brilliant with numbers, but more than that, she understands the bigger picture. How tax strategy fits into long-term wealth building. I felt a flutter of genuine affection for Marcus at that moment. He wasn't just playing a role. He really did respect my intelligence and capabilities. That sounds fascinating, Jessica said, leaning forward. What kind of developments are you working on? And just like that, Marcus launched into a description of his current projects that had both Jessica and Tyler hanging on every word. The luxury condos in Paradise Valley that would start at $2 million each. The historic renovation in Central Phoenix that had caught the attention of Architectural Digest. The partnership he was considering with a hotel chain for a boutique resort concept. Throughout his stories, I watched my sister's face carefully. Jessica had always been attracted to success and ambition, and Marcus had both in spades. More importantly, he had the kind of financial security that Tyler clearly couldn't provide. At least not for many years, if ever. The most exciting part, Marcus continued, is that Sandra's been invaluable in structuring these deals. She has this incredible instinct for seeing potential problems before they arise. I've actually been trying to convince her to come work for me full-time as CFO of my company. This was news to me, and my surprise must have shown on my face because Marcus squeezed my hand gently. I've been waiting for the right moment to bring it up officially, he said, his eyes locked on mine. But Sandra, you're wasted at Henderson & Associates. You should be building something with someone who appreciates what you bring to the table. Tyler cleared his throat awkwardly. That sounds like an amazing opportunity, Sandra. The way he said my name, there was something wistful in it that made me feel a momentary pang of something. Not regret, exactly, but a recognition of what we'd once meant to each other. It would be a big decision, I said carefully. But Marcus is right. I've learned so much this past year about thinking bigger, taking calculated risks. Life's too short to play it safe, Marcus agreed. When you find something worth investing in, whether it's a business opportunity or a person, you have to be willing to go all in. The conversation flowed through dinner, with Marcus regaling them with stories of his travels, his business philosophy, his plans for expansion into California and Nevada markets. He was magnetic in the way that successful, confident men often are, and I could see Jessica becoming more animated as the evening progressed. Tyler, meanwhile, grew quieter with each passing course. He tried to contribute to the conversation, mentioning a complex tax case he'd worked on or asking intelligent questions about Marcus's business, but it was clear he felt outclassed. You know what I love most about Sandra? Marcus said as we were finishing our entrees. She never settles. When something isn't working in her life, she has the courage to change it. That takes real strength, Jessica's smile faltered slightly. Sandra's always been strong-willed. More than that, Marcus continued. She's strategic. She thinks long-term about what she wants and then makes it happen. It's one of the things that attracted me to her immediately. I could feel Tyler's eyes on me, and when I glanced his way, there was definitely something like regret in his expression. Good. As we moved on to dessert and coffee, Marcus excused himself to take a business call, giving me a gentle kiss on the cheek before stepping away from the table. The moment he was gone, the dynamic shifted completely. Sandra, Jessica said, her voice lower. He's incredible. How did you meet someone like that? At a networking event, I said simply. Sometimes you meet the right person when you're in the right place in your life. Tyler was studying his hands. He seems very successful. He is, I agreed. But more than that, he sees my potential and wants to help me achieve it. That means everything to me. There was an uncomfortable silence before Jessica spoke again. I have to ask, are things between you two serious? I smiled, letting my happiness show genuinely for the first time all evening. Very serious. I've never felt this way about anyone before. That's wonderful, Jessica said, but her voice was strained. Really wonderful, Tyler finally looked up. Sandra, I'm glad you're happy. You deserve that. The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of the old connection we'd shared. But then I remembered the phone call where he'd told me he had feelings for my sister, the months of betrayal, the way Jessica had defended their relationship by blaming me. Thank you, Tyler. That means a lot. Marcus returned to the table, apologizing for the interruption. Sorry about that. Crisis averted. My contractor in Sedona was panicking over permits. But it turned out to be nothing serious. The glamorous life of a developer, I teased. And he laughed. Hardly glamorous, but never boring. Speaking of which, he turned to Jessica and Tyler. You two should come visit the Sedona project once it's finished. We'll have a model unit ready by Christmas. That would be amazing, Jessica said quickly, and I could hear the genuine enthusiasm in her voice. As we prepared to leave, Marcus insisted on picking up the check despite Tyler's protests. I noticed Tyler glanced at the bill when Marcus wasn't looking, and his face went slightly pale. Dinner for four at Dominic's with wine easily ran close to $600. Outside the restaurant, we said our goodbyes. Marcus shook hands with Tyler again, and I could see Tyler sizing him up one more time, taking in his expensive watch, his confident bearing, the way he moved through the world like he owned it. We should do this again soon, Jessica said, hugging me goodbye. It was so good to reconnect. Absolutely, I agreed. I've missed having my sister in my life. As Marcus and I drove home in his BMW, he reached over and took my hand. That went well, don't you think? Your sister and Tyler seem nice. A little quiet, maybe, but nice. Tyler's always been more reserved, I said. And Jessica? Well, she seemed a little overwhelmed tonight. Overwhelmed? I chose my words carefully. I think she's dealing with some pressure about her relationship. She's at an age where a lot of her friends are getting engaged and married, and Tyler's been hesitant to take that next step. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Financial pressure, probably. It's tough when you want to provide for someone you love, but you're not where you want to be career-wise yet. Exactly. But as I said it, I felt a small stab of something uncomfortable. Because the truth was, Tyler had been ready to commit to Jessica, just not in the timeline she wanted, and not with the financial security she craved. The seed was planted, though. I could see it in Jessica's eyes throughout the evening. The way she'd looked at Marcus, the questions she'd asked about his business, the enthusiasm in her voice when he'd mentioned the Sedona project. My sister had always been ambitious, always wanted the best of everything. Tonight, she'd gotten a very clear picture of what the best looked like, and it wasn't sitting across from her holding Tyler's hand. The aftermath of that dinner was everything I could have hoped for and more. Jessica started texting me regularly, something she hadn't done since before the Tyler situation exploded. But these weren't the casual sister messages we used to exchange. These were carefully crafted inquiries designed to extract more information about Marcus and my new lifestyle. Had such a great time last night. Marcus is so interesting. How did he get started in real estate development? That restaurant was incredible. Do you and Marcus eat out like that often? I keep thinking about what Marcus said about taking calculated risks. He's obviously so successful. I'd love to hear more about his business philosophy sometime. I responded to each message with just enough detail to keep her intrigued, but not so much that I seemed like I was bragging. It was a delicate balance, feeding her curiosity while maintaining the illusion that I was simply being a loving sister who wanted to share her happiness. Meanwhile, Tyler had apparently become unusually quiet at home. Jessica mentioned this in one of her texts, disguised as concern for his well-being. Tyler seemed a bit off after dinner Friday. I think he might be stressed about work. Did Marcus mention anything about the accounting field? Maybe some advice for someone just starting out? I screenshot that message and stared at it for a full 5 minutes, savoring the implications. Tyler was rattled. Good. 2 weeks after our dinner, Jessica called me on a Wednesday afternoon while I was reviewing contracts at Marcus's office. Sandra, I hope I'm not bothering you at work. Not at all. What's up? Well, I was wondering, do you think Marcus would be willing to give Tyler some career advice? Tyler's been feeling stuck lately, and I thought maybe someone with Marcus's experience could offer some guidance. There it was, the opening I'd been waiting for. I'm sure Marcus would be happy to help, I said warmly. He loves mentoring young professionals. Why don't you two come over for dinner Saturday night? More casual this time, I'll cook. That would be amazing. Tyler will be so grateful. After we hung up, I sat back in my chair and allowed myself a moment of pure satisfaction. Jessica was actively seeking out more time with Marcus, using Tyler's career concerns as an excuse. Even better, she was coming to me, which positioned me as the generous sister facilitating her access to my successful boyfriend. That Saturday, I spent hours preparing the perfect dinner. Not too fancy. I wanted them to feel comfortable in Marcus's house, but sophisticated enough to showcase the life we'd built together. I made pan-seared salmon with lemon herb butter, roasted vegetables from the farmer's market, and a chocolate souffle that I'd been practicing for weeks. Marcus's house in Paradise Valley was the perfect backdrop. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains, an open-concept kitchen with professional-grade appliances, artwork that had clearly been selected by someone with both money and taste. Everything about the space screamed success without being ostentatious. Jessica and Tyler arrived right on time, and I noticed immediately that Jessica had put extra effort into her appearance. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup was flawless, and she was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something that looked expensive and showed off her figure to advantage. Tyler, meanwhile, looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his smile seemed forced. "Welcome to our home," I said, giving them both hugs. Marcus is just finishing up a conference call with his investors in Los Angeles, but he'll be down in a few minutes. I gave them a tour of the main floor, watching Jessica's eyes take in every detail. The gourmet kitchen where I'd spent the afternoon cooking, the living room with its custom furniture and view of the infinity pool, the home office where Marcus conducted business with clients worth millions of dollars. Sandra, this place is incredible, Jessica breathed, running her hand along the marble countertop in the kitchen. You two have built something really special here. We have, I agreed. Marcus has this amazing ability to see potential in everything: properties, business ventures, people. He saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. Tyler was standing by the window, looking out at the pool and the mountains beyond. It's a beautiful view, he said quietly. Marcus chose this house specifically for the sunsets, I told him. He says there's nothing like watching the sky change colors over the mountains after a long day of work. When Marcus appeared, freshly showered and wearing casual clothes that probably cost more than Tyler's entire outfit, he greeted our guests with genuine warmth. Tyler, Jessica, so good to see you again. Sandra's been excited about this all week. Over dinner, Marcus was his usual charming self, asking thoughtful questions about Tyler's work and offering insights into the business world that clearly fascinated Jessica. But I could see something else happening. Marcus was genuinely trying to help Tyler, giving him practical advice about networking, professional development, and career advancement. The key, Marcus said, cutting into his salmon, is to think beyond your current position. Don't just focus on doing your job well. Focus on understanding how your work fits into the bigger picture of your client's success. Tyler nodded, taking notes on his phone. That makes sense. I've been so focused on getting the technical work right that I haven't thought much about the strategic side. Exactly. And don't be afraid to bring ideas to your boss. Most senior partners are looking for associates who can think like business advisors, not just tax preparers. I watched this exchange with mixed feelings. Part of me was pleased that Marcus's advice might actually help Tyler advance his career. But another part of me, the part that was still angry about the betrayal, whispered that Tyler's success would only make things easier for him and Jessica. After dinner, we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert. Marcus opened a bottle of port that he'd been saving for a special occasion, and the conversation became more relaxed and personal. I have to ask, Jessica said, curled up in one of the leather armchairs with her wine glass. How did you know Sandra was the one? Marcus looked at me with such genuine affection that my heart skipped a beat. Honestly, it was her independence. Most women I'd dated seemed more interested in what I could provide for them than in building something together. But Sandra was already successful in her own right. She didn't need me, she chose me. That made all the difference. I felt Tyler's eyes on me, and when I glanced his way, there was something complicated in his expression. Recognition, maybe, or regret. That's beautiful, Jessica said softly. You two are so lucky to have found each other. We are, Marcus agreed. And speaking of building something together, he turned to me with a smile. Sandra, I know we talked about waiting, but I can't keep this to myself any longer. My heart started pounding. Was he about to propose? Here, in front of Jessica and Tyler? Marcus stood up and walked to a cabinet across the room, returning with a small velvet box that made Jessica gasp audibly. Sandra Brown, he said, dropping to one knee in front of my chair. You've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've made me want to be better, do better, build something lasting and meaningful. Will you marry me? The ring was stunning, a flawless solitaire that caught the light from every angle, clearly costing more than most people's cars. But it was the look in Marcus's eyes that took my breath away. He really loved me. This wasn't part of any plan or revenge scheme. This was real. Yes, I whispered, my voice breaking with emotion. Yes, of course. Marcus slipped the ring onto my finger and pulled me into his arms for a kiss that made me forget for a moment that we had an audience. When we broke apart, Jessica was on her feet, tears streaming down her face. Oh my God, Sandra. Congratulations. She rushed over to hug both of us, but I could see something else in her expression beyond happiness: envy, longing, a recognition of everything she didn't have. Tyler stood more slowly, offering his congratulations with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. When he shook Marcus's hand, I noticed his gaze lingering on my ring, and I wondered what he was thinking. Whether he was calculating how long it would take him to afford something like that for Jessica, or whether he was remembering the much smaller ring he'd once talked about buying for me. "We haven't set a date yet," Marcus said, his arm around my waist, "but we're thinking about next spring. Something elegant but not too big. Maybe here at the house with a view of the mountains." "That sounds perfect," Jessica said, and her voice was just slightly too bright. "Spring weddings are so romantic." As Tyler and Jessica prepared to leave that night, I walked them to the door while Marcus cleaned up in the kitchen. "Sandra," Jessica said quietly, "I am so happy for you, really. You deserve all of this." There was something in the way she said it, a kind of desperate sincerity, that made me study her face more carefully. "Thank you, Jess. That means everything to me." Tyler gave me a hug goodbye, and for just a moment, he held on a little longer than necessary. "You look really happy," he said softly. "I'm glad." After they left, I stood in the doorway watching their car disappear down the winding road, my engagement ring sparkling in the porch light. Phase 2 of my plan was complete. Jessica had now seen not just Marcus's success and charm, but also his devotion to me. She'd witnessed him choose me, commit to me, offer me everything she'd been desperately wanting Tyler to provide. But as I closed the door and turned back to Marcus, who was waiting for me with a smile that made my heart flutter, I realized something unexpected had happened. I was actually genuinely happy. The revenge had been satisfying, but the love was real. The question now was whether I could have both. The weeks following our engagement were a whirlwind of congratulations, planning and watching Jessica slowly unravel. She threw herself into wedding planning with an enthusiasm that would have seemed touching if I didn't know her real motivations. She volunteered to help with everything: venue scouting, dress shopping, vendor research, and I let her know that every moment she spent planning my perfect wedding was a reminder of what Tyler hadn't given her. Marcus was thrilled by Jessica's involvement. "It's so wonderful that your sister wants to be part of this," he said one evening as we reviewed flower arrangements Jessica had researched. "Family support means everything for a wedding. If only he knew that Jessica's support came with a heavy dose of barely concealed resentment and increasing desperation." The breaking point came during our cake tasting appointment at Scottsdale's most exclusive bakery. I'd invited Jessica to join us, knowing she'd been dropping hints about wanting to be included in more wedding activities. Marcus had to cancel at the last minute due to a client emergency, so it ended up being just Jessica and me sampling 7-layer vanilla bean cakes and discussing fondant versus buttercream. "The raspberry filling is divine," Jessica said, taking another bite of what would probably be our top choice. "Marcus is going to love this one." "He has a sweet tooth," I agreed. "Though honestly, he's so easygoing about the wedding details. He keeps saying he just wants me to have everything I've ever dreamed of." Jessica's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "That's so romantic." Tyler's more practical about things. I'd been waiting for an opening like this. Practical can be good too. Different people show love in different ways, I suppose." Jessica set down her fork and looked out the bakery's window at the busy Scottsdale street. "Can I ask you something, Sandra?" "Of course." "How long did you and Marcus date before you knew he was serious about marriage?" The question was loaded, and we both knew it. Jessica and Tyler had been together for almost 2 years now, and there was still no ring on her finger. "About 8 months," I said truthfully. But honestly, I think I knew sooner than that. "Marcus isn't the type to waste time when he knows what he wants," Jessica nodded slowly. "Some people are just more decisive, I guess. Have you and Tyler talked about the timeline recently?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Tyler's timeline keeps changing. First, it was when he got settled in his job. Then it was when we'd been together for 2 years. Now he's talking about wanting to save more money, maybe wait until he gets a promotion. I made sympathetic noises, but inside I was calculating. Tyler was stalling, and Jessica was getting increasingly frustrated. Perfect. I'm sure he just wants to be able to give you everything you deserve, I said carefully. Maybe. Jessica picked at her cake. It's just watching you two together, seeing how sure Marcus is about your future. It makes me wonder if I'm settling for less than I should. There it was, the doubt I'd been cultivating, finally spoken aloud. Jessica, you shouldn't settle. You deserve someone who can't wait to marry you, who sees you as the best thing that's ever happened to him. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Do you think Tyler sees me that way? I paused, choosing my words carefully. I think Tyler loves you, but maybe he's not ready for the same things you are. That conversation marked a shift in Jessica's behavior. She became increasingly critical of Tyler in our conversations, comparing him unfavorably to Marcus in subtle ways that suggested the seed of dissatisfaction had taken root. Meanwhile, my wedding planning was moving forward beautifully. Marcus had insisted on hiring Aria Blackwood, Phoenix's most sought-after wedding planner, whose client list included celebrities and politicians. Our engagement party was set for December at the Phoenix Art Museum. Our wedding for the following April at Marcus's house with reception tents overlooking the mountains. Every detail was perfect, and Jessica was there for all of it, helping me choose between platinum and gold charger plates while her own relationship slowly deteriorated. 2 months before the wedding, Jessica called me crying. Sandra, I need to see you. Can you come over? I found her in her apartment, still in her pajamas at 3 p.m, surrounded by tissues and looking like she hadn't slept in days. Tyler and I had a huge fight last night, she said without preamble. I brought up the engagement again, and he completely shut down. He said I was pressuring him and that maybe we needed to take a break from talking about marriage altogether. I sat down next to her on the couch and rubbed her back while she cried. Part of me felt genuine sympathy for her pain, even knowing I'd helped create the conditions that led to it. What exactly did he say? He said he feels like I'm comparing our relationship to other people's, and that it's not fair. He said he loves me, but he needs to do things at his own pace. Jessica wiped her nose with a tissue. But Sandra, I'm 27. Most of my friends are married. I watch you with Marcus, and I see what a real partnership looks like. Tyler still acts like we're just dating. Have you told him how you feel? I've tried, but he gets defensive. He says I'm being materialistic when I mention that other couples our age are buying houses and planning futures together. But it's not about money, it's about commitment. Except it was about money, at least partially. Jessica had always been drawn to financial security, and Tyler's modest salary wasn't providing the lifestyle she wanted. Maybe you need to think about what you really want, I said gently, not just from Tyler but from life. What would make you truly happy? Jessica looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I want what you have. Someone who's excited about building a future with me, who doesn't hesitate when it comes to commitment. I want to feel chosen. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jessica wanted to feel chosen, but she'd stolen that feeling from me when she took Tyler. Now she was discovering that what she'd won wasn't as valuable as she'd thought. Then maybe you need to have a serious conversation with Tyler about where this relationship is going, I suggested. Give him a timeline. If he's not ready to move forward, you need to decide if you're willing to wait indefinitely. 3 weeks later, Jessica and Tyler broke up. Jessica called me at midnight, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. It's over, she managed between gasps. I told Tyler I needed to know our timeline, and he said he couldn't give me one. He said he wasn't ready for marriage and didn't know when he would be. I drove to her apartment and held her while she cried, listening to the whole story. Tyler had been honest with her. He loved her but felt rushed and pressured. He wasn't financially ready for marriage, and he resented feeling like he wasn't good enough because he couldn't provide the lifestyle she wanted. He said I'd changed, Jessica whispered, that I used to be happy with simple things, but now I'm always comparing what we have to what other people have. The accusation stung because it was true. Jessica had changed, partly because I'd shown her a different way of living. but also because she'd finally admitted what she'd always wanted: security, status, a partner who could give her the life she felt she deserved. "I don't know what to do now," she said. "I'm almost 28, Sandra. Tyler was supposed to be my person. I thought we were building toward something, but he was just comfortable." I stayed with Jessica that night, holding her while she grieved the end of her relationship. And despite everything that had happened between us, despite the revenge I'd been orchestrating, I felt genuinely sad for her. She was my sister and she was in pain, but I was also satisfied. Tyler had chosen to walk away rather than commit to Jessica, just as he'd once chosen Jessica over me. The relationship she'd stolen from me hadn't given her the happiness she'd expected. The next morning, as I was making coffee in Jessica's kitchen, she appeared in the doorway, looking pale but determined. "Sandra, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course. Do you think I made a mistake? 2 years ago with Tyler? Do you think I chose the wrong person?" I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw someone who was lost, questioning every major decision she'd made. This was the moment I'd been working toward, the complete dismantling of her confidence in the choice she'd made. But standing there in her kitchen, seeing her genuine pain, I realized that my revenge had succeeded beyond what I'd ever imagined. Jessica wasn't just sorry about hurting me, she was genuinely regretting the path she'd chosen. "I think," I said carefully, "that everything happens for a reason. If you and Tyler had been right for each other, you would have found a way to make it work." Jessica nodded, tears starting to fall again. "I keep thinking about that night at Dominic's, watching you and Marcus together. You two have something I never had with Tyler. Real partnership. Real certainty. You'll find that too," I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "Will I? I'm almost 28, Sandra. I wasted 2 years with someone who didn't even want to marry me. Meanwhile, you found someone incredible who can't wait to spend his life with you." As I drove home that morning, I felt a strange mixture of triumph and emptiness. My plan had worked perfectly. Jessica was single, questioning her choices, and fully aware of what she'd lost. But seeing her genuine pain had awakened something in me that I'd buried under months of anger and plotting. She was still my sister. And despite everything she'd done to me, I wasn't sure revenge tasted as sweet as I'd thought it would. In the months leading up to my wedding, Jessica threw herself into being the perfect maid of honor with a desperate energy that was both touching and unsettling. She organized my bachelorette party in Napa Valley, complete with wine tastings and a private chef. She helped coordinate dress fittings and managed vendor communications. She did everything a loving sister should do, and I could see it was killing her inside. Every wedding-related activity was a reminder of what she didn't have, what Tyler had refused to give her. But there was something else I noticed too. The way Jessica looked at Marcus during our wedding events. The way she lingered when he hugged her hello or goodbye. The way she laughed just a little too loudly at his jokes. My sister was developing feelings for my fiancé. The realization should have made me furious, but instead, it filled me with a cold satisfaction. This was perfect. Better than I could have orchestrated even if I'd tried. Jessica wasn't just regretting her choice to steal Tyler. She was falling for the man she could never have. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jessica came to the house while Marcus was at work. I was in the middle of addressing final invitations when she appeared in the doorway of the home office, looking more serious than I'd seen her since the breakup. "Sandra, we need to talk." I set down my calligraphy pen and gave her my full attention. "What's wrong?" Jessica closed the door behind her and sat down across from my desk. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise not to hate me." My pulse quickened, but I kept my expression neutral. "Jessica, you're scaring me. What is it?" "I think I'm in love with Marcus." The words hung in the air between us like a confession at church, heavy with guilt and desperate for absolution. Jessica's eyes were filled with tears, her hands trembling in her lap. "I know how horrible that sounds," she rushed on. "I know he's your fiancé. I know you're getting married in 2 weeks. I know this makes me a terrible person. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way." I stared at my sister. This woman who had already stolen one boyfriend from me and was now confessing her feelings for another. The sheer audacity of it should have sent me into a rage, but instead, I felt eerily calm. "How long have you felt this way?" I asked quietly. "Since that first dinner at Dominic's, maybe? I don't know exactly when it started, but it's been building for months. Every time I see you two together, every time he talks about your future, every time he looks at you like you're the most important person in his world. I'm jealous, Sandra. Not just of what you have, but of him specifically." Jessica was crying now, ugly sobs that made her mascara run down her cheeks. "I broke up with Tyler because I realized I was comparing him to Marcus constantly. Every conversation, every gesture, every moment of hesitation from Tyler just reminded me of how certain Marcus is about everything. How confident and successful and perfect he is. Jessica," I said slowly, "Marcus is my fiancé. We're getting married in 13 days. "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I hate myself for feeling this way. But Sandra, what if you're making a mistake? What if Marcus would be happier with someone who appreciates him differently?" The suggestion was so outrageous, so completely tone-deaf that I almost laughed. Jessica was suggesting that Marcus would be happier with her. The sister who had already proven she was willing to steal men from family members. "Are you asking me to step aside so you can be with Marcus?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "No. God, no, I would never. Jessica wiped her nose with a tissue. "I needed to tell someone. I needed to be honest about what I'm feeling, because carrying this secret is destroying me." I stood up from my desk and walked to the window, overlooking the pool where Marcus and I had spent countless evenings planning our future together. This was the moment I'd been building toward, though I hadn't realized it until now. "Jessica, do you remember what you said to me when I found out about you and Tyler?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "You said that nobody stole anybody. Tyler made his own choice. Maybe if I'd paid more attention to my relationship, it wouldn't have happened." Jessica's face went pale as she realized where I was going with this. "You're right about one thing," I continued, turning back to face her. "Marcus does deserve someone who appreciates him. Someone who chose him from the beginning, who supported his dreams, who built something with him instead of trying to take what someone else had built." "Sandra, I didn't mean. Marcus deserves someone who didn't wait until another person was engaged to realize his value. He deserves someone who saw his worth when he was just a man at a networking event, not a prize to be won from her sister." Jessica was crying harder now. "Please, Sandra, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." "But it did happen," I said calmly. "Just like it happened with Tyler. You have a pattern, Jessica. You want what other people have, and you convince yourself you deserve it more than they do." I walked back to my desk and picked up my pen, returning to addressing invitations as if we were discussing the weather. "Sandra, please, say something. Yell at me, tell me I'm horrible, anything. Just don't shut me out." I looked up at my sister, really looked at her. She was beautiful, as always, but there was something desperate and hollow in her expression that I'd never seen before. The confident, magnetic Jessica I'd grown up admiring was gone, replaced by someone who seemed lost and grasping for anything that might make her feel whole. "I'm not going to yell at you, Jessica. I'm going to marry Marcus in 13 days, and you're going to be my maid of honor. You're going to smile and give a beautiful toast about sisterly love and second chances. And then you're going to move on with your life and find your own happiness instead of trying to steal mine." "But what if Marcus loves me," I interrupted. "He chose me, he proposed to me, and he's building a life with me. Whatever fantasy you've constructed in your head isn't real." Jessica stood up slowly, looking defeated. "I should probably step down as maid of honor. I don't think I can." "You're not stepping down," I said firmly. "You made your bed with Tyler, and now you're going to lie in it. You're going to stand up at my wedding and watch me marry the man you think you want. You're going to see what it looks like when someone actually commits to the person they love." The cruelty in my own voice surprised me, but I couldn't stop. "This is what you get, Jessica. You destroyed my relationship with Tyler because you thought you could do better." Now you get to watch me have everything you want with a man you can never have." Jessica left that day broken and defeated, and I felt the cold satisfaction of revenge finally complete. The wedding itself was everything Marcus and I had dreamed of. The April weather was perfect, the mountains provided a stunning backdrop, and our guests raved about every detail. Marcus looked devastating in his custom tuxedo, and I felt like a princess in my Vera Wang gown. But the moment that made everything worthwhile was watching Jessica during the ceremony. She stood at my side in her dusty rose bridesmaid dress, tears streaming down her face as she watched Marcus promise to love, honor, and cherish me for the rest of his life. Every word of his vows was a reminder of what Tyler had never given her, what she would probably never have. During the reception, as Marcus and I danced our first dance to At Last by Etta James, I caught Jessica's eye across the crowd. She was standing alone by the bar, watching us with an expression of pure longing and regret. I had won. Completely and utterly, Marcus spun me around, his eyes full of love and joy, and whispered, "I can't believe you're my wife." "I can't believe I'm lucky enough to be married to you," I whispered back. And the beautiful thing was, I meant every word. My revenge against Jessica was complete, but my love for Marcus was real. I had gotten everything I wanted: the perfect husband, the perfect life, and the satisfaction of watching my sister realize exactly what her betrayal had cost her. Later that evening, as our guests were saying goodbye, Jessica approached Marcus and me for a final congratulations. "You two are perfect together," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Sandra, you got everything you deserved." I hugged my sister goodbye, feeling her shake with barely contained sobs. "Thank you for being here, Jess. It meant everything to have my family's support." As Jessica walked away, alone and defeated, Marcus squeezed my hand. "Your sister seemed emotional today." "Happy tears, I hope?" I watched Jessica's retreating figure, knowing she was going home to an empty apartment while I went home with the man of her dreams. "Something like that," I said. Marcus never knew that our wedding day was the culmination of the most elaborate revenge plot I'd ever conceived. He never knew that Jessica's tears weren't from happiness, but from the crushing realization that she'd gambled away her sister's love for a man who would never commit, only to fall in love with a man who belonged to someone else. As far as Marcus knew, we were just a happy couple who'd overcome family drama to find our perfect love story. And maybe that's exactly what we were. Because the revenge was sweet, but the love was real. And in the end, I realized I'd gotten something even better than I'd planned. I hadn't just stolen Jessica's dream guy, I'd found mine. And watching her realize what she'd lost made our victory taste even sweeter. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.